Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here with us. My name is Abby Monroe. If you don't know me, I'm the Nonprofit Connection Director here at the United Way of Northern Utah. If you haven't noticed, we've had a little bit of change in presentation. This was supposed to be hosted by Danielle Nevesilov. However, she had a family emergency come up. So we leaned into Kate. Of course, she said yes, because that's what Kate does. She was happy to jump in, and we're excited for her to teach us some grant writing basics, places that you can look for grants, how to find out what works well for your organization. And she has included a lot of links in this presentation, which will be available for you after. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to Kate because she's got a lot to cover today, and we want to make sure we can get through it all. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'll be kind of moderating that, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Kate.
And I'm actually going to quickly, if you can access this, I'm going to put into the chat really quickly. Let me find my chat here, and I'm going to put in a link to the PowerPoint. So that's a PowerPoint. It's on a Google Drive that we have at the Nonprofit Connection. And so I'm also going to be sharing with you, or with Abby, and she'll share with you a link to a folder that has a lot of the resources that are in here. So you're going to have access to all of these resources. And then I've created a folder for any grant seeker with all of the resources that I have created that I use for the last like 10 years or so. So feel free to take any of them, make them better. If you do make them better, share them back with me so that I can improve what I do. It was easy for me to jump in today just because I actually signed up for this class because I wanted to learn from Danielle and see what she could share with me, because I'm always trying to learn more and be better at what I do. So I did, I updated my presentation, did a little bit of work on it just so we could get some new information out here for you guys. And we're going to start, I'm going to share the screen, and then we're going to start with, let's see, here we go. I'm going to start with just a quick kind of pre-assessment. Let me come in here to my view, slideshow, make sure everybody can see it. I had a little problem if anybody was on my last webinar and my Zoom wasn't working correctly. I couldn't put people into chats and some things happened. So hopefully everybody can see this. This is our grant writing basics #1. There's going to be a #2. So if we don't go through everything in this slideshow, Danielle is going to include it in the one that she does next. So we're just going to start off with, my little overview for, these are called KB Tips for Success. And it really, the thing I can't stress is that success in the grant writing world requires a nonprofit knowledge, a lot of preparation, and organizational skills. So if anybody has ever done a Kahoots before, we're going to do a Kahoots. I've already brought it up over here for you guys. So if you want to play the game, if you want to play along, I'm going to give you, there's a QR code you can scan. There's a website, and we can play. We can see who the winner is. I don't know, whoever wins, if you want to go out to lunch with me and ask me all kinds of questions about grants, let's do it. So that's what the winner is going to get, is a lunch on me, and you can ask me anything you want about grants. I did this before, and the person who, I'm just giving you a second to log onto your Kahoots, but the person asked me what my superpowers were, which I thought was super cute. And so I told her, I think my superpowers honestly are, I can learn pretty quickly and retain knowledge, which that was a gift that I was given as I was born, right? And I can Google anything. So I learned how to use Google a long time ago. So we're going to start. We've got a few people on here, but again, you can play along. If you just want to answer the questions on your own and not log in, that works too. So this is kind of to assess what you know already about grants. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, here we go. United Way of Northern Utah's Nonprofit Connection newsletter is a great way to find.
I told her as it gets closer. I said it's going to be around 11:30, but I'm not sure exactly.
Someone we can mute.
I'll guys let her know.
True or false?
Marcy, can you mute yourself?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Of course, that answer is true. So just so you know, we're going to talk about that later on today and show you that. But we spend quite a few hours kind of curating those lists for you. So we're excited that you can use it as a tool. Okay, here we go. I have to say, Lisa has played this game a lot. We do it at United Way. It's one of the fun things that we do to start a lot of our meetings. Next question is a poll. On a scale from 1 to 5, how confident are you in your grant writing skills? Well, great. We've got a lot of people who are confident, at least somewhat confident. So we've got, that's a great kind of realm of different people. Hopefully by the time we're done, you're going to move anybody who's at the not confident level will move up. So our goal is to move everybody up one level here today. Of the following, which is the most likely reason that a grant may be rejected? Too short, too many graphics, too much detail, or a lack of clarity? That answer is a lack of clarity. So the other ones, too short, too much detail, too many graphics, but the lack of clarity is the most important thing. You have to be clear what you're writing about. Okay, we still have Lisa at number 1, and Maddie is number 2, and Gina moved up, so she's at number 3. What is a grant proposal? It's a document outlining a business plan, a document outlining a proposed project, a document outlining a marketing plan, or a document outlining a completed project. And the answer is an outline documenting a proposed project. Almost everybody got that correct. A grant plan is like a business plan, very much like a business plan, but it is a proposed project. The project is usually not completed. Well, it can't be completed when you do the grant application. So let's go to the next. We got some movement up here. What is one way to improve your grant proposals? Address the funder's needs, add as much detail as possible, write long sentences, use lots of industry jargon. So what is the best way? I should say the best way. And it is address the funder's needs as possible. As I reread the question that I wrote, I thought, I wasn't as clear as I should have been, because adding as much detail as possible could be a way, but it depends on the grant that you are applying for. So sometimes adding too much detail puts you over the limit and it's a little bit too long. Okay, there's our scoreboard. Oh, Lisa's back up at top. Here we go. Next one. What is a grant reviewer? So it's someone who distributes grant money, someone who writes grant proposals, someone who evaluates grant proposals, or someone who approves grant proposals. There's a little bit of a nuance of difference in between all of those. And the answer is 13, someone who evaluates. Last time I did this when we had a full day, I actually had grant reviewers who were on the call and we did a panel with them. So that's something I think Abby was, we're going to talk about. I think I'm going to suggest to Abby that she does again with you guys. I think you will love it. It was the most favorite part of the whole day of training that we did. Which of the following are not usually required information for grant applications? So board of directors, names and affiliations, client testimonials, wages and salaries of the top highest paid employees, or EIN numbers. This one's a tricky one, so it's not usually required. I can hear music on my end. And look at that. Most everybody got it right. Client testimonials. Sometimes you can put that in a supplemental document, but they don't normally ask it as a grant question. Oh, Karina moved up to the top. Holy cow, we got some movement. Okay, true or false? True or false, grant writing is a guaranteed way of getting funding. I think we all know that. What is wrong with my timing? It stopped for a second, it looked like. And the answer to that is false. I knew that was kind of one of those questions everybody should get. Is not guaranteed. So anytime I work with clients, in fact, I've changed my model for my own business, and I do more consulting and mentoring than I do grant writing, because grant writing is not guaranteed, and I want your organization to be as strong as possible. So we look at all the ways that we can fund and strengthen your organization. Which is included in a logic model. This is kind of a hard one if you don't know what a logic model is. Inputs or resources, short-term goals, outcomes, need or problem to be addressed, activities, or all of the above are included. And the answer is all of the above, right? And a logic model is something that your more sophisticated grant makers will ask you to have, but it is something that's really important as you do your grant writing. Having that logic model is going to give you direction. So Lisa's back up at the top. Karina is down at number 2, and Gina is at number 3. 10 out of 11. One of the most common mistakes a grant writer makes is not responding to the question asked on the application. True or false? Look at that. Everybody got their answer so quickly. I should have given less time. The answer is false. Or sorry, the answer is true. What am I saying? I don't know why it's marked as false. Everybody should have got that one right. The answer is wrong. So it is. That is one of the most common mistakes that the grant writers make. And that comes from all the grant reviewers that I've talked to over the years. Okay, well, everybody got that one right or wrong. You know, this is my mistake. Grant writers highly recommend applying for a grant, even if your project doesn't meet the funder's priorities. So would a grant writer recommend that you apply for a grant, even if your project does not meet the funder's priorities? Yes or no? And the answer is no. I would not recommend, and we're going to talk about that today. It's going to be one of the big themes of what we talk about. Is that when you're writing for grants, especially most people in the nonprofit world, we have such limited time that we really want to make sure that the grant that we're writing for works with. Oh, there you go. Oh, wait, let's see who won. Sorry, I almost lost. Gina, number 3. Lisa, number 2. And number 1 is Karina. So Karina, get in touch with me. And then Gina and Lisa, of course, you know, you guys can always call me. Anybody can call me. If anybody wants to talk about grants, learn anything more, just give me a call. I'd love to meet with you and talk about it with you. Okay, let me just get out of that and go. I don't know why every time this happens, I have to go back in and do my slideshow again. Okay. We're going to go to next. So I hope that that helps you a little bit. So from the very beginning, I wanted you to start learning about grants. And that's why we did that little quiz. It's a great way to get started. It's also a great way to see kind of what your knowledge is. And then hopefully we can learn something. So today's all going to be about what I call my top tips on grant writing. And so these are the top tips I have. Perfect your mission, your background, your history, research your potential funders. For 2 reasons. One is a round peg does not fit into a square hole. And number 2, you should know your funders' priorities and speak to them in your narrative. Prepare squared is something that I talk about. We'll talk about that later. Answer the questions asked. And remember, there's going to be a real person reading it. Budgets, think of it like a bank loan. Transparency and fiscal responsibility are so important. Pay attention to your deadlines and your requirements. And I know that's something I screw up quite a bit. So I'm always trying to be better at that. Make your evaluation plan easy to implement, because you have to respond to what you say you're going to. You're going to have to give a report. Partnerships and letters of support and how to do that. And then always have a second set of eyes and sleep on it. So that review is important. So the most common question in any grant application you're ever going to get is a description of your organization, the history and the mission of the organization. So I recommend that everybody always have something written and ready to go for that question. So the most common grant question that there is. It sets the tone for what you're going to do. Normally, if we have time, I would actually right now make you write that out and then make you share it out in small groups in the chat room. But because we only have 45 minutes, I just wanted to make sure we still start with that. And that's something that you should have. If you would like for me to review your response to this question, by all means, send it over to me and I'll do it. What I wanted to show you was I was working with Ogden Contemporary Arts and we actually just redid. Can you see it when I change my screens? So this was something that and it's not something that you do once and you're done. So I worked with them. We had something that we had written and then we wrote out this new one. But you can see it's pretty long. It has their values in it, their mission, their vision. It has what their goals are, where they're located. It has how many people they served. Some highlights of what they've done and really outlines the purpose and what their activities are, right? So, but it's super long. So if I look at this one right here that I wrote, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And I looked at it and I did my word count up here and it is 592 words. Well, guess what? I had to write a grant and they said, nope, we don't have 592 words. They told me I had, and I'll show you what this one is. This is the second one that I had to rewrite. So when you look at this one and I review it and I see it, this one was 289 words. So make sure that you have a couple of different iterations of your responses to this question. So I would write it full out with everything that you would respond to it, which was my first one, which was about 600 words. Then I took and I wrote it out again and I made it 300. And then I have another version of it that's 150 words. So when you do this response to that question here, description, history, and mission of the organization, have it from 150 words, which is 3 to 4 sentences, all the way up to your 600 words. So that you can respond in any way. So that would be one of the biggest tips that I would give you is have that ready, have that reviewed, have that perfect. So make sure you have multiple eyes on it. It is the most common grant question. It sets the tone. If you look at these are foundations, each one of these are hyperlinks. So the W.C. Swanson Foundation, the Sorensen Legacy Foundation, George and Dolores Dorey, Richard and Shirley Hemingway, Crocker Catalyst, Cross Charitable, and then United Ways. United Way calls it an organizational review. But they all have a question almost exactly like this on every single application, which is why you should have that ready to go. Any questions on that? Okay, my next top tip is research your potential funders, i.e., do not try to fit a square peg into a round hole. So I've attended so many grant makers forums and talked to grant makers and reviewers, and they say they gave me maybe 5 things that I will share with you today. But this was one of the top things. They said one of the biggest reasons that organizations do not get funded is because as wonderful as their project is or as their organization is, it does not meet our priorities of funding. Foundations are set up just like nonprofit organizations in that they have to list what their priorities are, what they're going to fund. And so as much as you get the best project in the world, if you are an art project, an art organization, but they fund programs that deal with homeless individuals, they're not going to fund your art project, and vice versa. If you have a project that works with homeless individuals and you need funding for your operations, and this is a grant that provides art programming, you're not going to get that funding. And a great example of this is the RAMP grant. If anybody has ever applied for RAMP, they're very specific, is that your mission has to state one of their priorities in it. And so you could apply for an amazing project, but it could be thrown out because it doesn't meet their regulations. So I have this this little funding analysis here. And again, if we had more time, this is something that I would fill out with you. And I would make you go through and do this and actually analyze some funding sources like the ones I just had up there. And you would come in. So this is what I would recommend is you do this activity. You write down your funder source. So maybe it would be Sorensen Legacy Foundation. It's one of the most common ones in the state of Utah. And then you would have to say, how does your organization align with the mission of the Sorensen Legacy Foundation? And then you would respond, how does your organization respond to the foundation's priorities? If there's any other points of interest, sometimes it would be, I'd look up their 990s and see if they're funding like, maybe if it's a like organization, or if they fund in your area. Those are other points of interest. Or maybe they fund just general ops, and a lot of people are always looking for general op money. Okay, so, but this is a worksheet that you can use or just answer these questions so that when you go and look for grants, that you can make sure that you're writing for and spending your time on the grants that you are most likely to get. And then that's the last one. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the lowest, how well does your organization align with this funder? So do you have a mission that's common? Do you have shared values and priorities? Have they funded organizations like yours? Have they funded in our area? Those are some of the questions that I would ask. And that's where I would start. So I you know, when I looked at what the goals were for this, it's how do we find grants that meet our needs? So I'm putting that other caveat in there. It's not only do we find the grants that meet our needs, it's finding the right grants that meet your organization's needs. And we have this thing at United Way that we really believe in. It's called the outward mindset. If anybody's ever worked with me, you can see the outward mindset is something really important. This approach that we're taking here is the outward mindset. It's not about how can your organization help me? It's about how can I help your foundation, your corporation achieve your mission, your goals, your priorities? Because that's the ultimate goal of that foundation. They've set priorities and missions, and then they come to you. This is called it's how you get population level change. They need your support, and they're going to give you funding to help them achieve their mission. So you need to be really aware of that and put that in the forefront of your mind. So how do you find it? There are a lot of different ways to find it. This one is one from United Way, and I'm just going to bring it over. United Way actually has this as a resource. So you can go to the Zeta Haas Grant Writing Center, which is at United Way, and you can log on the computer and you can do a grant search using Candid Foundation Directory online. It's an amazing tool. Because I do this so often, I have my own account there, but I don't have the United Way account. The United Way account one is more robust than what I have. I think there are 3 or 4 levels that you can buy into. So let's say you can see all the ones that I've saved as well too. So let's say I want to look at arts and culture in Weber County. Oh, I have to log in again. Sorry, it's been on. I had it up for too long. Okay, so here you go. It pulls it up, and then I want to search. And then I have 108. And what's really cool about this as well is that you can print this off. I love looking at this. George and Dolores Dorey is probably the biggest foundation in Utah with the amount of money they give and the amount of grants that they give every year. So this is so cool because it tells you how much they're giving over the last 5 years, I think it is, in all of these different categories. So you can at a glance see whether or not you want to look into this a little bit more. You can see how much they're giving and where they're giving. And then I love this because it tells you what is the average amount of money that they're giving. That's one of the biggest things I see when I work with my nonprofits is like, we've worked with a couple of nonprofits say, well, I want to go and ask so-and-so for $250,000. And you've never received money from them before. And I'm like, okay, well, even George and Dolores Dorey Eccles, their sweet spot is going to be between 10 and 25,000. So if you want the 100 or 250,000, they gave away 211 grants over the last 5 years. But the likelihood of you first time out getting that kind of money is going to be low. The other thing I like about this is that it gives you information on how you apply. And then this is one of my most favorite things, is that it pulls up their 990. So what I do is I make a folder for each one of my grants. If you look here, this is called Grant Opportunities. And I have a folder of all of this. So you can see all of the research that I've done and all the grantors that I've researched here. And then inside of each one, I put a copy of the 990s. And then I also come in and I can print off, you can save this page as well. And I save this page. So I go in and make that a PDF as well. And so I can look at a couple of years of 990s. I can look at this PDF. And then the third thing that I do is I go to the actual grant website. And then I will go in and actually, like, you know, read about what this looks like. And a lot of times I just come in here and I do a print, and then I'll save this as a PDF so that every single organization I have a folder on. So it makes it super easy for me to be able to find that in the future. So this is a tool, it's free to use. United Way pays a great deal of money for it, but go in and use it. What I like to do personally is I like to go in, like with my level or even on the free level, and take a look. You can go and get kind of a overview and then maybe pick out the ones that you're really interested in, and then go to United Way with your like top list of maybe 10 that you want to research that day. So there's that. The other one I love is called Grant Watch. Grant Watch is a paid subscription, and I use Grant Watch all the time. So I can come in and I log into my Grant Watch, and it's the same kind of thing with my search filters. I'm going to choose, let's go to, where's a good one here? I don't know, homeless, okay? And then I'm going to go to location and say Utah. And then I'm going to say search by recipient. I want a nonprofit. And right now, I just want to look at foundations. And then I'm going to apply. And I don't know what happened. Oh, I didn't save it. Sorry. So nonprofits, location. Let me go to Utah. Choose your category. I'm going to pull this time. Let's just do BIPOC, funding source, foundations. And I love this too because I can do the deadline. So let's say I want to do it from next week to Thanksgiving-ish. And it's going to pull, and there's 14. Now, you might get excited when you're like, oh my gosh, there's 14. But you have to really look through them, because out of these 14, you probably are going to get maybe one or two that may apply to you. So Grant Watch is the other one that I use a lot. Instrumental is amazing, but it's very expensive, and it's like for a singular organization. So if you have a little bit of money, I love Instrumental because it will create a profile for your organization, and its metrics will actually help like send you grants that they think would fit. Like the AI will send you grants that they think that fit your organization. I love Candid GuideStar helps out, Charity Navigator, Cause IQ. I also use GrantStation quite a bit. And I love this one too. So I have my GrantStation, and I'm going to log in. I think I have a different password. I can't remember, but so that it will actually pull tools for me as well. And it will send me a monthly newsletter of grants that I might want to consider. So here's like the Mark Wahlberg Youth Foundation. This is new. Eliminate barriers that prevent youth from succeeding. Oh my gosh, this is a brand new one. So let's make sure that we send this one out to everybody, because I don't even have it yet. So I'm going to keep that one up there. This is what happens. I get so excited. I kind of say I like go down the rabbit hole, and then it's like 2 hours later. So that's what these are over on this side. On this side, this is kind of cool. So this is one of my favorite new ones that I've been looking at, and it is called It's on Give Form, but there's double the donation. There's a bunch of them. So this one is 25 companies that donate to nonprofits. So if you're looking to find corporate sponsorships, you can look at something like this. And there's a list here, Johnson & Johnson. But what I think is really cool, let's go to, let me find one, Verizon, for example. And what I love is it talks to you, it gives you information about the foundation, but it has it also talks to you about, they double the donation of their employees. So if you're looking at a corporate giving, a lot of these they have giving and grants, which is both. So the foundation will have a grant, but the corporation, if you have anybody that you know who works for Verizon, Verizon will match however much money they donate to your organization. So it's got that dual purpose to it, which I really love. There's a couple of them in here. Like I said, there's Give Forms, there's Give Butter, and Double the Donation. They all basically have the same list. You can choose whichever one you want. And then the last one, which I don't have a hyperlink to, but if you want to sign up for the Nonprofit Connections monthly newsletter, just contact Abby and she will put you on the list. So we what we do is we look through all of these tools that I just shared with you, and we curate that list for the nonprofits that we serve in Northern Utah. And so we kind of do some of this work for you. And then what we do is we have a hyperlink to the website. We put in the deadline, and it's arranged by deadline. And then we give you just like a 1 or 2 sentence kind of like summary of what this grant competition is for. So kind of hoping to help you like reduce your time and effort that you have to use to try to find these. Okay, the next thing, let me go, what's my next? Oh, sorry, I have to get back on this page. Sorry, let me go previous then. Okay. Oh, I just went back to George and Dolores. Don't trust me with any. Let me go previous. Okay. Previous. Okay, we got those. Now I'm going to go next. So the next thing that I say is know your funders' priorities and speak to them. And like I said, I've got the Google Doc funder analysis here. And what I would do is just go through and use the doc analysis. And so United Way has a grant that's coming up. It's due on the 31st. I would look at theirs to see where you would fit. Rocky Mountain Power has a grant coming up on December 15th, and it's for health and safety. So if you fit that category, terrific. Sorensen Legacy Foundation has quarterly applications. The Swanson Foundation is a little bit more tricky. They're not giving out as many grants, and you really need to develop a personal relationship. George and Dolores Dory Eccles, and that's something else when we talk about your funders. Know if it's an open application process or if you need to know somebody and get prior approval to submit, because you don't want to submit a grant application and have them say, sorry, we're only taking pre-selected, or you need to fill out a letter of inquiry first, or letter. So you have to make sure that you understand that. Richard and Shirley Hemingway, that one will come up in, I think, February. Depends on if you're new to them or previous applicant. Bank of America has multiple different, they fund a multiple like focus areas. Miller Family Foundation has changed how they work, and now they are accepting open applications. They didn't used to accept those in the past. Dominion Energy, I believe, is open all year long. Union Pacific has a deadline in the summer, and I don't know, the Union Pacific, it funds kind of, from what I see, kind of pre-selected. It's hard to get new into Union Pacific. And then this is a really small one, but it's the SQ Shea Foundation, and you're only going to get like maybe $1,000 to $2,000 from that. But if you have all of these here and you're saying, okay, so then I would go to the Zeta Haas Grant Writing Center, and I would look them up to see what the average give is, how much they normally give, and then who do they normally give to. And I would use that to kind of evaluate how much you should even ask for. So prepare square. There's my next tip. And I'm just looking at my time, making sure. We've got a grant writing annual calendar. So here's the calendar that I use, or a template for it. It's in there. the grant entity, the dates, the website, the amount, a summary of what it's for, the type of funding, and allowable requests. But you can make your own. And then I do it by month. So every month I do it like by year and then by month. So you have that. I always say keep your documents one place and keep them updated. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Create a case for support. It's going to be your content. That could be a whole grant writing class itself. And have your organization and needs updated. So go to the next one. So in your grant writing folder, you should have planning documents, any of the required documents. I'm going to show you what those are. Any content information, if you have an annual report, anything like that. If you have previous applications to that funder, make sure you put that in there. I have grant writing opportunities, data and supporting research, grant submissions, and grant reports. Each one of those are actual folders in my Google account. Those are all of my folders. Everything that's highlighted here are the most commonly asked for required documents. You have to have those in a place where you can access them ASAP, and they need to be updated. And when I do the list of board members, make sure you have their affiliations, because it's not good enough just to say that you have Abby Monroe on your board. You have to say Abby Monroe, United Way of Northern Utah, Nonprofit Connection Director. They want all of that information. Profit and loss statements, at least quarterly. You have to have those. If not, then you're likely not going to get the money, because it's one of my tips is that it really is like going in for a bank loan. Having your data and research available and updated every year is important. So you should have client and community demographic data. These are just some examples of what you should have. Again, and these are data specific to your organization. You should know the number of clients you serve annually. You should know what your service area is. You should know the average dosage. So how much, like Treehouse is going to have a huge number of clients, right? But the dosage is going to be small. Whereas somebody like Boys and Girls Club is going to have a smaller number of clients, but their dosage could be 800 hours. Whereas with the Treehouse, the dosage may be 10 hours if somebody comes 5 times a year for 2 hours each date. The average cost per client, if your client has to pay anything, and then anything else that's specific just to your organization. So where do you find data? These are all hyperlinks to all kinds of data resources that you can just, like I said, I can Google anything. And at my last training, I actually had several people, I had them go out and actually search for data, and they brought back to me some additional ones. So somebody was working with animals. So this was one. Somebody showed this Utah Economic Data Viewer, DWS Annual Income and Major Employers. So statistics on the elderly. So I actually grew this list by double in the last time I did this session. So super, super cool. And if you have any data sites that you use a lot, please share them in the chat, and then Abby can send them out to everybody when we follow up, because we want to have as big of a data dashboard as possible. So again, answer the question and remember that a real person is reading it. This is the biggest reason after it's a wrong fit. The biggest reason is that you don't answer the question. And you don't know how many grant applications I've reviewed from people that have worked with me, because I train interns and things like that. And I'll read their response and I'll say, all you did was copy and paste this from something else. You did not respond to their questions. So the first thing I say is change your application question into your topic sentence. Always use the same adjectives, verbs, etc. that the funding source is using. Don't ever just copy and paste, because they're going to change the questions for you and just going to show that you're lazy. And that was one of the things that the grant reviewers said as well, is that if they will have last year's application up as they're reading this year's, and if you just copy and paste, they will think that you are lazy. Use a separate document to create and save. You could see what I had made for Ogden Contemporary Arts, and then use the word character tool. You saw that I used that. Be consistent. This is the last one. I don't care if you use the first person like I, we, our, or use the third person. You know, it and they, and whichever one you want. He or she, well, you don't actually use he or she when you talk about an organization, but use one or the other. Don't mix them up, and just do a word search to make sure you stay consistent, or have somebody review it to make sure you stay consistent. So that's super big. Even if, like with this adjective thing and the verbs, make sure like you're using them. We just did a big grant application from the federal government and they kept using the word, I can't remember what it was. It was like, I don't know if it was vulnerable youth or marginalized youth or whatever it was. And one of our partners said, we don't use whichever the word, we use this word instead. And I said, I understand that, but this grant application, if you look, it has used the word vulnerable youth 87 times. So that's the word we're going to use. Budgets, think of it as a bank loan. Budgets tell a story in numbers. It's more than just a calculation of your revenue and expenses. They communicate how you raise money. So it's not just enough for you to have a budget, but you have to be able to show where your other money is coming from. And you need to prove sustainability. So there's a big grant application. A lot of people are writing for it. It's due this Friday. It's the Ogden Giving Circle. And they're giving away $60,000 total across the whole community. And they're only giving out 1 to 2 grants. And I know they're going to have at least 24 applications. And so if you're going to write for a $200,000 project and you're asking for 50,000, if you can't tell them where the other 150 is coming from, or that you have a plan for that, you're not going to get a dime, because they don't want to fund a project that is not going to be funded. Does that make sense? So I always say use the 25 to 30% rule. You have to ask for enough funding that it looks like you need their money, but not too much so that they're the only ones in. So it's kind of a fine line there. Balance your budget. Your expenses and your income should match. I know it doesn't make sense to me, because I should always want my income to be more money than what I expend every year, because I should have a little bit of a reserve fund, right, in case COVID happens or something like that. But when you turn in your budgets, make sure you have a balance of your income and expenses. Even if you put a line item in there that you are creating a reserve, or you have a contingency line item, add that into your expenses so that the top and the bottom match. And this will be the last tip, and then I'm going to answer some questions, because we have until 11:45, then you have some questions. Make sure that your budget aligns with your request and the allowed expenses. So a lot of organizations will say they won't give money for indirect costs, or they're not going to give money for, like, the Swanson Foundation doesn't give money for salaries. So you better not ask for salaries in your Swanson request, or else you're just going to get turned away right away. And they're going to be like, well, they didn't even read my directions. The last one is, don't forget your in-kind value. And I say this over and over and over again. In-kind is if you get something for free, and if that person or whatever it was that you're getting for free walks away, would you have to then spend your organizational's money on it to replace it, because it's important to your organization? So Ogden Valley Adaptive Sports is one that I always use as an example. They are so lucky. And I don't know if anybody from Ogden is on this call, but they get, it's like $100-something thousand in kind from all of our ski resorts. They get equipment rentals, they get free lift tickets, they get facilities up there, they get all kinds of things. Well, if the leadership in those ski resorts changed and the owner said, no, you're going to have to pay for this now, we're not going to fund it for you for free, their budget would have to increase by $130,000. So you need to make sure that you include that. They also have over $50,000 in volunteers who help the instructors. If that volunteer wasn't there, they'd have to have a paid staff there. So make sure you put that in there. Okay, I've got more in here again, but you can read the rest of them. And I am just open for any questions that you have. If there are no questions, I'll move on.
We have a question. I have a meeting with Rocky Mountain Power tomorrow to establish a relationship because of your last grant class, hoping for future funding from them. So I guess it wasn't a question, but maybe do you have any advice for her on how to approach that meeting?
Yeah. So I'm going to try to stop sharing so I can see people. Yes. Oh my gosh. So that explains to me why I got a phone call from Kirk yesterday. So Kirk gave me a call and I have to give him a call back. You know what? Kirk is an amazing guy. I'm glad that you reached out to him. Just tell him about your organization. I would have my elevator speech planned, right? And just say, you know, this is what my organization does. This is what your funding can do for us. And just, you know, walk them through why. Why is, you know, I always start with start with the why. I always start with the why. And after I tell them why, this is why what we do is important. This is the need in our community and you need to help us. So start with that why, because nobody cares about the what until they know why it's important. So that's it. That is what I would say. And I'm glad that you did that. That's awesome.
Hey, do you have any other advice for people that may be new to grant writing on building relationships? How do they connect with these funders and grantors?
So it's kind of scary at first. You think about it, right? You're like, should I call them? They get so many. Here's the thing. Their job is actually to give out the money. So they want to help you. And they want you to submit an application that's going to be the best quality that they can, because that's part of their job, right? And so if they get high quality applications, it makes their job easier, right? And so it makes it easier for them to select who's going to get the funding. So a lot of them will give email addresses, or they'll have webinars like this. They'll have like RAMP. Okay, so anybody who's writing for RAMP, Monday, 4:00, you have to be there. RAMP has a required meeting on Monday, either through Zoom or in person, but it's a great way for you to get to know the people. Is go there, make sure you have 1 or 2 questions, walk up to them, shake their hand, look them in the eye, tell them who you are, and thank them. Just thank them. Say, thank you so much for considering our proposals. We know you have so many proposals to look through. And that's the other thing, is whether you get the grant or not. This is a tip. I didn't put it in my tips and I should have. Send that person, there'll be an email address, but send that email address a thank you. Thank you so much for reviewing our application and considering it. I understand that your organization receives so many applications each year. And it's a difficult decision. Even though you did not fund ours, I hope you will do so in the future. And if it's okay with you, I'd love to send you our annual report every year. Susie, who's not on the phone, I don't think Susie's on the phone. Susie from Larson from Susie Senior Companionship Services. Oh my gosh, call Susie. She legitimately, she doesn't get a grant. She's on the phone calling the person the next day, or she's emailing them. Why didn't I get the grant? What can I do better next time? Is there anybody else? So she has gotten so much funding just through that. And she just has asked, I really would love to get funded. If I'm not a good fit, will you tell me? Because I can look somewhere else. So that would be my suggestion. A big question that I've had recently from people is AI, ChatGPT. I'm not gonna lie, I use ChatGPT. And I don't use it exclusively. I always make sure, I use it for very specific things. Let me just see if I can find one here for you that I did. I really wanted to find one. So that you could see, I will use it. So what I've done is, I've used it where I've created a letter, like a letter of support for that I need an organization to write for me. That's something else as a tip. If you need a letter of support from somebody, write out the letter, give it to them and say, here's an example of the letter that I would need. Please use this, change this, whatever you need to do. But I wanted to make sure I gave you something to start with. And then also say, I would love to use this letter, not just for this grant application, but for every grant application I submit this year. I would love to have your permission to just change the who it's to and send this out. And then I also tell them, I will always let you know when I'm using your letter and give you a copy of the new version of it. And so, because if you ask me to write you a letter and you're submitting 12 grants and each one needs a letter of support, it's super easy if I just give you my permission to use it for every funding source, as long as you let me know in advance. And as long as you build a relationship with these people who are writing your letters of support and you let them know in advance, I've never had anybody tell me no. I've had them come back in and change the letter and update it, but I've never had somebody come back and say, oh no, I'm not going to support you anymore. But make sure you give that to them. So that's what I've used ChatGPT for. I'm just trying to see if I could find one. So I've taken that letter. Oops, wait, no, I don't want to do a new one. I was going to show you the letter that I took a letter and I changed it for multiple. So I wrote the initial letter and then I said, okay, here's my initial letter. I put it in there and I said, now change this to write it to a corporate president. And then I said, now change this to write it to an alumni who has received these services. Now change this so it is for a government agency. So I've used ChatGPT to change my letters, or I'd say, here's the letter that I wrote to a foundation last year. Can you change the letter so that it looks different but says the same things? So I've done that as well. And ChatGPT will do a nice job. I don't ever copy and paste, but I will use that as my starting point. I'll copy and paste, use it as my starting point, and then make changes to the letter. So it makes your life easier when you do it that way. That's what I use ChatGPT for. I can go on to the next couple of tips if you want, or we can get off early. It's up to you guys.
We have 7 minutes. We might as well see what you've got.
Okay, let me move it over. Then I'm going to move this back over to my other screen. And I'm going to go share screen, go back to number 1, and you should see it, right? Okay, so I've already said to create your
Okay,
electronic
it looks like
folder.
someone's requesting to jump to the evaluation plan.
Oh,
Can
great.
we move to
Okay.
that section?
Yep, we sure can. Okay, so this is so important. Create an easy to implement evaluation plan. We use results-based accountability. I learned about results-based accountability through United Way about 3 years ago, and it's changed my life forever because it makes it super simple. You ask 3 questions only. How much did we do? How well did we do it? And who is better off? How do we know somebody is better off? So those are the 3 questions that we always ask. And then when we collect our data, when we determine what are those data points that we need to collect, we ask a couple of questions as well. And the first question you should ask yourself is, can I easily access the data? So don't put in an evaluation plan with data that's going to be hard for you to get, number 1. Number 2 is actually is the data that I'm, so that would actually be number 2. Number 1 is what data points tell the story, and what, make it less than 3. What 3 data points do I have that will tell the story, that will answer how much, how well, and is anyone better off? So what are those key data points that everybody is going to understand? So that's actually 2 pieces to it. It's like, what are the key data points, and what are the key data points that everybody will understand? And then the third question is can I get the data easily? So what are the data points that are really going to measure success? Of these data points, which are the easiest that everybody can understand? And then the third one is, can I access that data easily? So those are the 3 things that you think about when you're collecting your data. And these are the 3 questions that you have to answer. You build your evaluation plan around those things. The other piece to it is that you should be looking at your data at least quarterly. If you're not, then it doesn't give you a chance to make changes. So access it, look at it quarterly, and see if you're making progress. Because if you don't look at it until your report's due, I call that an autopsy. And guess what? You can't make changes. And if something isn't working, then you're going to have to report out it's not working. But if you look at it quarterly, and by the second quarter, let's say you looked at it, you've done a root cause analysis as to why it's not working, and you need to make a change, you can go to your funder and say, listen, you gave me $100,000 or $25,000 to do this. I've been doing it for 6 months this way, and it's not working. So in order to achieve my goal that I have, we're going to make a change, and we're going to try this instead. Your funder is going to applaud you. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, thank you for being transparent and honest, right? Now you've got a chance to make a change so that when you do your end report, you can show that you are really working hard to make this work. So those are my tips for that part. And then creating SMART goals. I can show you some examples of SMART goals, and KPIs are key performance indicators. So, which are what we're talking about, how much, how well, and is anyone better off? Those are your key performance indicators. But And then also if you're submitting a grant, like for a project, make sure that your objectives aren't just like your big organization objectives, but they're objectives or goals specifically for your project. They're very specific to your project. So I think I've got, let's see, my next one. Where am I at here? Next. Oh, that was partnerships and LOIs. I do have, here's your SMART goal. So it has to be specific. So define your goals so that they know exactly what you want, measurable. How will you know when your goal is achieved? And this is different. I do achievable different because what I like to do is exactly what I just said, is looking at, does your goal, like my goal is achievable if I do A, B, C, and D, right? So understanding not just that I can achieve that goal, but knowing what I need to do to achieve that goal and outlining that as well. Because if you do A and it works, and then you go on and do B and B doesn't work, then you know you're not going to achieve your goal. So you have to go back and rewrite something. And relevant, and then time bound. So make sure that it can be achieved within the time that you say. So those are the SMART goals. They're going to ask you for SMART goals all the time. I think that's about everything, because I already talked about partnerships and letters of support, creating the sample, get written permission, and send a copy of it. Partnerships are so important. Every organization that I've ever written for, almost, has said, who are your partners? Make sure you identify who your partners are. And then just your tips. I use Grammarly. I love Grammarly. Again, it's like ChatGPT. It's a tool. Grammarly is not correct 100% of the time. I would say for me, at least 15% of the time, I ignore what Grammarly is telling me to do, because I have a degree in English. I was a language arts teacher. And I'm like, oh no, Grammarly, I can quote to you why what you're saying is wrong. So, it's an AI tool that you can use. So make sure that you use it. Have somebody else read it. One of the big things that I tell everybody now is with your big grants that you write, if you have criteria, I would give somebody else the grant to read and give them the criteria and say, am I hitting the mark or am I missing something? And that's it. 11:59.
Well done. I love that she says, and that's it. Everybody off to write your grants, get the money. Kate, thank you so much. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge and experience with us. I will be sending all of your slides out to the attendees. And like Kate said, she is only a phone call away. So if you want to get a hold of her, just send her an email, send her a text. She's happy to help. If you have any questions or want to be added to set up an appointment to use the Zeta Haas Grant Center here at United Way, or want to be added to the Nonprofit Connection newsletter and are not already, please just reach out to me. And Kate just put her phone number and email in the chat. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and end there, and everyone can get on with their lunch break. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.